All right, everybody, we're going to get started here. We've got Brad Maibach from Maibach Tractor, and Brad is going to do a demonstration here on the Saginaw steering box that you have on your 4-digit Olivers on the front there. And we'll just turn it over to him and let him go with it. He's thinking about 15 minutes to go through this. So if you have any questions or anything like that, I guess just pop them in here and we'll get Brad to answer them accordingly. Thank you, Brad.
Howdy. Well, this is one of the simpler things to do on these units. But one thing I'm going to address first is this bleeder in the center of the cap. Everything, most all your whites, most all your 55 series Olivers, you see a lot of them, but that's been plugged, and usually there's a strap over top the cap at that point, or big washers. If that doesn't have a vent line on it, that unit will build pressure from both sides because it's a closed center hydraulic system, and they'll blow the cap or leak easier or cause problems. So you see quite a few of them where the cap's busted because somebody plugged that at one point in its life, and they don't like that very much. These have a snap ring in the end that can chase after you pretty quick if you're not careful. Hole in the top, you just push the snap ring down some, if you can get on it just right. Come on. On the model of tractor, it ranges from difficult to very challenging to get that pushed back in once it's installed. Just pull your end cap out. There would normally be an O-ring on here, but we already had this part cleaned up, so that's missing. Gear has timing marks on it, so you don't really have to worry about that. There's a dot there. We just put a paint mark on it. And your rack's the same way. It's got a dot on it. Right in the center, and they usually have it on both sides. Doesn't matter which way that goes in. The seal kits comes with mostly Viton O-rings and a couple Teflon rings. There's a O-ring goes in the bottom of the groove. Your Teflon sets on top of it. You got to be a little careful with these. And then if you've got a couple pair of ring compressors around, that sure helps to pull these back to size while you're doing other things too. You can cut up a pop can and use a hose clamp. That's been done many times.
What about a beer can?
Yeah, there should be plenty of them in there. You got to empty them first though.
That's a good idea.
Sleeves for these things.
So that's just compressing it in?
That's just, that Teflon stretches a little bit when you work it over the piston, and this is just squeezing it back down, and it'll hold its shape long enough to slide it in there. Set that off to the side. You got your quad ring that goes in the bottom of the box. This is, most of the time, this is what leaks. That's about the first thing to go. Make sure you don't get a twist in that.
No little needed?
There will be. O-ring for the top cap, or for the plug. O-ring for the end cap and the lid. Make sure we get the right ones. Once you got that all there, you grab some O-ring lubricant. Get it around the chamfer in the top here. And this is a little more difficult, but there's another chamfer down there that the O-ring that rides on this side has to go across. That's just, you do the best you can and hope you get it so it doesn't cut the Teflon. Not much of a way of checking that after you get it in there.
So if you have a lot of leftover O-rings, should you start all over, or should you just call Maibach Tractor?
Doesn't matter which way that goes in.
Nope. Center dots, top and bottom both. Yeah, they're, you know what? No, this one has the checks on both ends. There might have been some that only had the check valve on one end. This is a good way to pinch a finger, but you don't want to let this thing drop. There's a void in the casting underneath this bolt. There's no great way to do this. There it is. Work them both down in. Make sure you don't have any blue Teflon shards left at the top. Fortunately, we don't. You don't see anything down there. Your O-ring just kind of sets down against the shoulder there. These are a pretty snug fit. You got to get them good and square. That feels like it's in the whole way.
Is that a special hammer?
Yeah, that's universal. I realized on the way down here that I didn't bring a hammer with me. to make sure that snap ring is fully in the groove. Put some lube on the quad ring on the bottom. Work your timing marks over to the center there.
So you can see that timing mark?
You can, it's hard to see, that's the idea of putting some paint marks on it. Make it a little easier to spot. There's that one. Some of these gears have teeth cut the whole way around them. This one has the stops in it. You see a lot of these where the end gets blown out, and a lot of times that's the result of the stops on your front spindles being worn off. A lot of times them need welded up, they get worn, and then this ram, when it goes back and forth, it smacks the end of the box instead of your spindle stopping it, and that'll crack a housing, blow a snap ring out, both. I've seen them split through the oil line ports, but yeah, paying attention to your steering stops. On most tractors have them. You get down in the lighter duty wide fronts, they don't have stops on them, and of course a narrow front doesn't have any. But line your timing marks up there. That gear going in smoothly, as the straighter that rack is, the smoother it goes in. It started. Oh, hang on to this gear. We can twist it. Get your gear down in, make sure you got your timing marks right. Probably should have started with, when you pull your cap off, you've got this slug under there. Hopefully somebody in the past didn't put it in upside down. It's got a little lip under there, you get a couple screwdrivers under it and work it up out. They can be a little cantankerous, but if it's upside down, you usually end up welding a nut to it or drilling a hole in it, or there's various ways of getting it out. But work that up out, and then this bolt underneath it takes an 1.1 socket. It's welded to a washer. Then there's a snap ring in this gear. And as you back that out, that pushes it up off the front axle. Sometimes the splines are tight, and it's a good idea to take a hammer and a big punch and smack the head of that bolt to break that taper loose.
After you loosen it a little?
After you loosen it a little bit, get it back against the snap ring. And from there, that'll usually come right up out. But put your new cap, new O-ring, and slug in the center of it. I'm not going to really bother pushing that the whole way in, because we're just going to have to dig it back out. But do O-ring on the cap, and that's about all there is to it. But yeah, any of your 55 series Olivers, starting with a 17, and all your whites except for a 270 need to have a vent line here going over to it usually tees into a cooler line. And your closed center hydraulic systems on these tractors have 2,200 pounds on them all the time. That seeps past the steering valve. You know, it comes up equally, so it's pushing on both sides, so it's not trying to steer. And then eventually it seeps past the Teflon rings and builds pressure under this cap. And if that vent line's not there, you'll bust caps pretty frequently. But, taking it out of the tractor, there's a couple exceptions, but for the most part, this pin just sets down in a hole in a strap. It's not actually bolted to anything. I think 2135s, 55s, some of them, the strap is actually on the box. This whole steering box sits on your front axle shaft, and when you have a lot of slop in your steering, one thing to do is have somebody sit in the seat and wiggle the steering wheel back and forth. And if this box rocks back and forth like this a lot, the bearings on that shaft in your front axle are shot, some needle bearings in there. If it rocks back and forth this way, your anchor strap going over to the frame, the strap and the pin probably both need replaced. Yeah, there's really not much to go wrong with these other than they leak. And that leak's either due to worn out O-rings or a busted housing. There's really no slop in the steering system comes out of that. I don't think I've ever seen a junk rack or a junk gear. They just don't wear out. Any slop in your steering usually comes from the box actually moving, or tie rods, or a lot of the tractors have a nut on the bottom of the shaft underneath the front axle. That nut's pushing on a sleeve that pushes on your steering tee, which pushes it up on its tapered splines. And it's pretty often that nut can be tightened up quite a bit. Push the splines together and tighten up the steering quite a bit that way. But, I think that's about all there is to that. Anybody have any questions on it?
You mentioned that that's for like the 55 series. Is the 50 series similar? Or?
The box is the same. Yeah, they don't. You can have a plug in the center of them, but the box itself's the same on all the 50 series that I can think of, and all your 1600s, your later 1800s. Some of your late 770s use that.
They won't have a vent on that cap.
Yeah, none of your open center, none of your tractors with open center hydraulics have a vent. They just have a plug in. It's just everything with the closed center hydraulics needs to be vented. And unless the cooler lines have been replaced, there should be a T or some of them used a little aluminum T right in a hose, and some of them had like a 1/8-inch pipe boss rings right to the cooler line where a hose bar would have went.
So it goes back into the system.
Yeah, it just dumps back into the cooler. I mean, that just, what would that leak, Jamie? Very, very little. I mean, a small cup in 5-10 minutes, depending on the condition of your steering box and even your steering wheel.
So when it's being rebuilt, very little to get through there.
It would be less. Yeah. Yep. So, yeah, check your steering stops. Make sure they're not shot. We've had to weld quite a bit up on them. So it stops before the end of the box gets hit. I don't think anybody's currently making any housing, so at the moment we're limited use supply, so try to make that go as far as possible. Yeah, there you go. That's a rare one. Blew it clear in half.
Any other questions at all for Brad? Well, thank you, Brad. Appreciate that. and we'll be back here at 2:30 for the 3-speed demo.
Yeah, we're gonna tear that down and kind of go over things and how they work and what's involved in the rebuild there. It's not gonna be legitimately rebuilt when it leaves here, but we'll know what's going on inside it.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.